Cool. My name is Amy Nowakoski. I'm a social media marketing consultant, and I have been flooded with a ton of questions on how to use Twitter to stay on top of the news, to learn what's happening in politics with our new presidential situation. And a lot of people have been really mystified about what Twitter is and how Twitter works and how you can use it to stay informed as a citizen and participate in the political ongoings that are happening in the country. So I'm going to do a quick screen share. I'm going to keep this as brief as possible, and I'll answer any questions if you want to comment on Facebook. And I kind of want to keep this as short as possible, so I'm going to jump right into it. Let me share my screen so that you all can see what's happening. So first I want to explain to you what Twitter is all about, and I'm gonna start with talking about Facebook. I know it's kind of a weird place to start, but most people are really familiar with what Facebook is, and it's good to do that compare and contrast with Twitter, and it'll help you understand Twitter a little bit better. So we all know Facebook. You jump on Facebook, you have your news feed, you can keep up to date with what's going on with all your friends. But I want you to think of Facebook as like the classic suburban cul-de-sac, right? So you've got like this little circular street and all your friends have their little houses, and you have a standing invitation to go over to your friend's house, right? So you pop over to your friend's house, you sit down at the kitchen table with them, maybe you flip through their photo albums, go through their bathroom closet, right? Your friends come over, they sit down on your couch and you have a conversation, right? That's kind of how Facebook is organized around. It's an invite process. You invite people into your space and then they can engage with different things in your space. Twitter, on the other hand, is a completely different animal. Twitter is like walking into Times Square. And you really have very little control over who you share your information with on Twitter, right? Your information is either public or it's private. And if it's public, anybody can engage with your content. So it's kind of like walking into Times Square. You've got your naked cowboy who's trying to sell you something. You've got tourists who are just there snapping photos. You've got people like the billboards all around you displaying information. And you've got the crazy people also who are like shouting on the top of their lungs and telling you that, I don't know, Jesus is coming tomorrow. Right? You've got all of these really kind of kooky and crazy nonstop information coming all the way at you. That's how Twitter is different than Facebook. Facebook is an invitation for people to come into your world. And Twitter, there's no invitation. You're just out there talking with the masses. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. So think of Twitter as like a stream, like this giant raging river of information. And inside that raging river of information, lots of different things float by, right? The only way to really participate with Twitter and to really get what Twitter's about is to actually jump in the river yourself and deal with all the different stuff that's floating around inside Twitter. Then when you're done with it, you get out of the river keeps flowing, and you have nothing to do with the river. Twitter is a right now phenomenon. You don't use Twitter for deep research. You don't use Twitter to catch up with what your bestie's been doing for the past 6 months. You go to Twitter because you want information that you're going to consume right this very second, or you want to have a conversation right this very second with people. I'm not going to walk you through on how to set up a Twitter account. It's pretty simple. All you need is an email address and a username. You can only have one username per email address. And that's it's a pretty easy thing to set up a Twitter account for yourself. But when you come to Twitter, you hit your main news feed. Now, this is a news feed that is a pure chronology. Like when you go to Facebook, I'm sure you've noticed that the post that's at the top of the page is not the most recent post. Facebook never has been and never will be a chronology. Twitter, on the other hand, is a chronology. So the first thing you see when you get to Twitter, at the top of your feed, is the very latest post from the people that you follow. And it will continually update itself, as you can see here. So So this is the latest post, this town hall project, from out of all of the thousands of people that I follow. That's the most latest update. Then it'll update itself again. As you can see, I've got 5 new tweets, and it'll keep going that way. So everything, the thing that's at the top of the list is the most recent thing. That's how Twitter is completely different from Facebook. So Twitter is a big stream of information. You jump in, you deal with the stuff that's floating around with you as you're floating down the stream, and then you jump out and you walk away, and the stream keeps going. So there's 2 ways to consume information on Twitter. One is to follow people and you get updated with what they're talking about on Twitter. The second way is to do a search for a topic. And as you can see over here, we have our trends. These are the trending topics on Facebook. These are the topics that are trending right now, and you can always put in a hashtag right up here where it says search Twitter. That's the other way that you can stay updated with information. So let me give you a couple practical examples. Let's just say on a daily basis, you want to know what the news is talking about, right? So you can follow CNN, BBC, NPR, ABC, Fox News. You can follow all the different news channels and then just quickly scroll through what they're talking about and essentially read the headlines for the day and stay up to date with what is happening in the world. If there is some an event that's happening, for example, let's say there is a big fire that happens in New York City. You could type in the word fire, New York City, and stay up to date on that current event topic that's going on. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Actually, I'll show you how to do that right now. So let me talk a little bit about hashtags first. We're all familiar with the cultural phenomenon of hashtag, right? Hashtag actually started in Twitter back in the old days. So I'm saying like 2009. I joined Twitter about 6 months after it launched. And it was a function that naturally grew out of the user base as a way to sort through all of this information. As I said, Twitter is just a huge stream of information. There's no categorizing it. It just is information coming right at your face. So the users developed this hashtag strategy where you would put the # in front of a word, and then you could easily search for that word with the really rudimentary search feature that was started with when Twitter launched. Twitter has since grown up a little bit and it's become a little more refined, but back in the old days, there was no way to find any information except by using hashtags. So hashtags really grew out of what Twitter, the old Twitter, before it became a little more user-friendly. So people use hashtags as a way to tag the topic of conversation that they're dealing with. And you can see your trending topics at any given time. And you can filter your trending topics in a couple different ways, but we're not going to talk about that today. So you can scroll through your trending topics to see what's happening with the world and then to keep up with conversations. So we're going to click over to the If I Won Powerball. So this is the one way that you can keep up with information, is to follow a topic, a trending topic. Now, you can see that this breaks it off as from top, latest people, photos, videos, and more, right? So the top tweet will be the one that's the most popular. Right now, this one has 341 likes and 72 retweets. So when you're following a trending topic, all you need to do is click on tweet. The hashtag will come up, and then you can write your status update. So I'll type in, sorry, my computer's at a weird angle for me to type right now. Right, and then you hit tweets and it will go off into the Twitter sphere, and you can see what the latest people are talking about when you click on latest, and kind of scroll through and jump in on the conversation. So that's the 2 ways that you can get information on Twitter is by following individual people or following topics. So let's talk a little bit about how to tweet and what Twitter means. As you should know, right, Twitter is 140 characters. You have to learn to be economic with your words to really become proficient at Twitter. So the shorter you can make your topic, the better off you're going to be. So the basics of Twitter is you create your tweet, you press tweet, and it goes off into the universe. It goes off to the people that you follow. If you've attached a hashtag in it to participate in a group conversation like I did with the If I Won Powerball, that will go back and forth. Now what you're saying, right? So If I Won Powerball is trending right now. What you can do is go and interact with these different people about their what they've tweeted on. So V Cruz here, I don't know who this Victor Cruz is, right? He writes, "I'd stop my 2020 campaign." So we can respond back to him, and this is where the engagement on Twitter becomes really fun and really powerful. Oh my goodness. Sorry about my typing. It's a really strange angle. And I'm going to also include the hashtag. Or not. So I've just tweeted back at him, right? And if I click on his tweet, it's going to come up with my response tweet there. And this is called a subtweet or an at reply, because there's his name with an at sign in front of it, right? I think a lot of people get a little bit mystified with what Twitter is and what Twitter isn't, because they don't actually see all of the conversation that's taking place. And I'm going to show you where that becomes really impactful in just a second. Okay, so you can send a tweet, you can reply to a tweet, you can also retweet. So let's just scroll down. Let's just retweet cute cat picture, right? You can click on the retweet here and do two things: just plain retweet it, or you can add your own comments. I'm going to plain retweet this. What a retweet is a piece of content that I have found to be interesting enough that I would want to share with the people who follow me. That's a basic retweet. A quote retweet just allows you to add a comment to that retweet. So let me take you over to another feature of Twitter that's really super powerful, and that's the list feature. Anytime you follow someone on Twitter, you can create a list. Actually, let me talk about following people first. Okay, so the first thing when you get onto Twitter, you're like, okay, I don't have any friends. It's not fun at all. That's 100% true. If you look at my profile here, I have almost 2,500 followers, right? And I'm following about 2,000 people. That's a lot, right? There's no way to keep up with that much information. But let me talk a little bit about how you find people to follow. When you hit the Twitter, when you first arrive at Twitter, you're going to see over here is your stats. You'll see the trending topics. You'll see, can I move this? You'll also see this box on who to follow. Now, this who to follow information is kind of collated in a couple different ways and served up to you. First of all, if you've linked your email address to Twitter, it will recommend people who are in your address book and also have an account on Twitter. You can click this find people you know and like refresh your address book with Twitter and find different people. It won't automatically find people that you're already connected with. It'll just give you the option. Then you can also click here on view all. This suggestions on who to follow list is collated in a couple different ways. One, it looks at who you're already following, who they're following, and who they might have in common, right? So a lot of people, if you scroll down this list, a lot of people that I follow also follow Jake Tapper and Andrea Mitchell. So they're going to recommend those to me. Now to follow that person, all you do is click follow and you're following. You don't have to follow someone on Twitter though to see the information that they're putting out. You can just go over to Jake Tapper's page and see what he's tweeting about today, right? Now that I'm following Jake Tapper, it will, anytime he tweets something, it'll show up in my feed. There's other ways that you can manage that information. And that's by, if you click on the little gear icon, you can add or remove people to lists. Lists are one of the handiest and necessary tools inside Twitter that very few people use. A Twitter list allows you to create a list of people to segment off this giant stream of information, right? And as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of different lists. And some of them I use more frequently than others. I'm also following other people's lists. For example, I have a list of awesome people. These are other people in the entrepreneur world that I want to, with one click, pay attention to. The feed that I currently use most of all and is connected to being a good citizen on Twitter is my news list. My news list is a collection of people of pundits, journalists, and reporters whose opinion I really respect. And I've segmented all of their Twitter accounts, about 37 of them, into one particular list. This list will only show me people that are on this list. And I will see all of their tweets, retweets, but not their @replies. So this is where, when you're a really active Twitter user, the power of Twitter comes in. Let me pick someone who's really good. Here's a good example. This is Glenn Thrush. Glenn, who's now famous from Saturday Night Live fame. He saw this tweet. It was sent to him, asking him if this is a visual expression of how he really feels at press conferences. He retweeted that with a comment saying no. If you click on that, you can then see the rest of the conversation. All right, Glenn's being lame. That's not a really good example. I don't want to do Kurt Eichenwald because he's a grumpy old man. Let me find someone really good. Let's go back up to Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes is a great Twitter person, right? He's really engaged in conversation. He talks to people a lot and there's a lot of back and forth, right? Let me see if he's got a better tweet. Sorry about this. I had it set up and then I can't actually see. I had a good tweet set up and then I clicked away from it. Okay, so Chris Hayes tweeted out this Amazon book, right? If you click on the tweet, it's going to bring it up in its own box, and you can see other people commenting to Chris about that book, right? So this is where the power of Twitter really happens. It's this back and forth that happens per each individual tweet. As you can see, like a whole bunch of people are talking about this one tweet, talking to Chris about this one tweet, and you can then go answer back and forth with this person. Another really great example is, I'm going to actually look her up instead of finding her in my feed. Anna Marie Cox, who is, I believe, one of the editors for MTV News. is a very prolific Twitterer with a lot of really super cute animal tweets when things get especially stressful. She was tweeting earlier today about a news article that was written about her, and she's gotten a lot of flack for it. So let me see if I can scroll down and find where one of her good tweets are about this. See, she's a prolific tweeter, and so sometimes it's hard to go back and when I was prepping for this earlier today, I should have updated myself. Okay, so here's where she starts talking about this article that was written about her. Now, she's having a back and forth conversation with this Kevin guy about an article that was published earlier today. So if you, here's a good example. Okay. So the article that was published about her claims that she shouldn't be a reporter because she attends protest marches. She sends out this tweet, 119 people like it, 4 people retweet it, and then you see here it's the number 13. That means that there are 13 comments on this individual tweet. So if you go through, you can actually read and an entire conversation. What Anna Marie Cox does is she subtweets because she has more to say about this topic. So she wrote this original post, then she replied to herself. And you can see that here with these little green bars. She's replied to herself so that her conversation can keep going a little bit further. Right? That's one way that you can express yourself more. Now you can see people have interacted back and forth with it. People have subtweeted their own subtweets, and the conversation keeps going. Anna Marie Cox is fairly responsive. If you tweet at her, she does respond back, and it's a way that's how the conversation happens. Now I think this is where people get really confused and they're like, oh my God, Twitter is so boring, because they don't, because they see this at face value, but then they don't actually see the conversation and the next layer of activity that's happening on Twitter. This is where the gold of Twitter really lives, and this is where some of the danger of Twitter really lives also. It's in the @ replies, where somebody replies back to an original tweet, that a conversation happens, right? And it is a really egalitarian way of having a conversation back and forth. Now, it's not always great, right? It's not always great conversation. If you go over to the real Donald Trump, I'll show you what I mean. So here's our president's Twitter account. Oh, this is Donald Trump Jr. Yeah, he'll be okay. So he now if you take a look here, he wrote this little tweet. 13,000 people have liked it, 3,000 people have retweeted it, and there are over 1,000 comments. If you click on this, you'll probably see a street fight happening, right? These lines that are connected together, this is to denote that a conversation is going on. So Donald Jr. sent out his original tweet. Joe replied. Nina's replying to Joe. Joe's replying to Nina. Matt is replying to Joe, Nina, and Donald. And it goes back and forth. This is how, this is a whole conversation that people are having. Well, that's an interesting photo. This is a whole conversation that people are having back and forth in response to something that Donald Trump Jr. just tweeted. I'm going to actually retweet that. Now you can feel free to jump in on that conversation if you want to get into that bar fight. Often the @ replies of a controversial tweet do turn into a bar fight, and you've got to learn how to sharpen your elbows, get in there, or ignore it, right? But this is where the real power of Twitter lies, is going through reading and participating in the conversation that happens in response to an individual's tweet. So, okay, so let's review right now what we've got. We talked about Facebook as a cul-de-sac. It's an invite-only process in general. Twitter is like Times Square. Anybody can just jump in and have a conversation. Twitter is like a big, gigantic stream. You have to jump in the stream, interact with the stuff that's in the stream, and then you jump out of the stream and walk away. There's two different ways to participate with the information or to interact with the information on Twitter. One is to follow people. The other is to follow a topic by a hashtag. How you tweet is you come up with a 140-character statement and you send that out. You can also retweet other people's tweets as an acknowledgement that this is information worthy enough for you to share it with your audience. You can @reply, so at the person's hashtag, reply directly to somebody's tweet. And that creates this whole culture of subtweeting where people tweet back and forth on inside a threaded conversation inside one individual's tweets. I showed you how to find people to follow. There's that. Let me talk about a little bit more about how to find other people to follow. And we're going to go back to Anna Marie Cox for a second. Anna Marie Cox. If we scroll all the way back up to the top of her account. Anna Marie Cox is kind of a little celebrity, right? She's got a million followers, but she only follows 3,671 people. So if you're looking for really good people to follow, what you want to do is follow the people you respect. You want to follow the people. Let me say that again. To find really good people to follow on Twitter, go to the people that you really respect and look at who they're following. It is often the case that big people, particularly people like Anna Marie Cox and the television pundits and reporters, they don't follow a lot of people back. Because who needs to follow a million people, right? So you could take a look at whom Anna Marie Cox has decided is worthy to follow, read their Twitter bios, see if they're an interesting person, and then follow them back. So like right off the bat, Kelly Wheel, right? She's a reporter at the Daily Beast. She might be somebody who's really interesting. I might want to click and follow her, right? If they have this little verified sign here, that means they've submitted paperwork and their real identification to Twitter, and Twitter has said that they're an actual real human being and are who they claim they are on Twitter. They're not a Twitter bot. They're not a Moldovan teenager who's trying to get clicks for money, right? They're an actual real person. So I just saw that Anna Marie Cox follows Pod Save America. I clicked to follow. Now I can also click on the gear icon as we discussed and add them to a Twitter list. I have a whole bunch of different Twitter lists. Some of them are private. Yes, I have a to be stalked Twitter list of people who I want to keep an eye on. And I have an election one. That was individual people who were running in the 2016 election that I wanted to keep up with what they were tweeting, but I didn't want them knowing that I was following them. And I have them broken out into different topics. I have my awesome people who've got my attention. So I'm going to put Pod Save America into the resistance. So with one click, they're now in the resistance list that I've created. And it's super easy to create a new list. Let's find the Indivisible Guide is in the resistance already. All right, so I'll just show you really quickly how easy it is to create a new list. I'm going to go down here to create a list and call it news outlets. You can add a description and you can make this a public list or a private list. A public list is obviously public, it can be seen by anybody. A private list, as you saw, has that little lock icon and it only shows up for you. You can add a description to this list. You don't have to, that's completely optional. I'm gonna save that list. They're going to go under news outlets and I can close this out. Another great way to find people to follow is look at the list that people you respect that have created. So here's her politics folder. I could go click through her politics folder and see who she is following. Click over here to members. And this is her curated list of interesting people who discuss politics online. Twitter lists are really the only way to deal with Twitter when you follow more than 50 people follow you. You know, I've got almost 3,000 people who follow me. It's literally impossible to consume that much information at any given time. So Twitter lists are the easiest way to break Twitter into little rivulets. So it's not this huge torrent of information coming out of you. All right, so we're going to recap once again, and I wanted to keep this at 30 minutes. So we're almost at the 30-minute mark. So Facebook is like a block party on a cul-de-sac, right? You have to invite people in, and when you invite a friend in, sometimes they bring friends of friends. But it's basically people that you already know and you interact with in general, invited into your space. Twitter is kind of like walking into the Wild West of Times Square, where it's a free-for-all for information. And there's very few ways that you can control how that information is put out or comes into your world. Twitter is a gigantic stream of information. The only way to deal with it is to jump in with it, interact with the stuff floating around with you as you head down the information stream, and then jump out and walk away. Twitter is a right now phenomenon. It's really good for finding out what's happening right this second in the world, finding out, following trending topics, seeing what other people are talking about, and getting breaking news. Twitter is really, really good for breaking news. Often you'll see right now inside politics that the second something goes live, like if Maggie Haberman posts a new piece to the New York Times, she'll often, like, it'll go live and she tweets it out immediately. So getting really active on Twitter, you can be on top of information faster than anyone else in the world. Not that that really matters, but if you want to be up on breaking news, Twitter is the place to go. If something happens in the world and you want more information about it right this very second, Twitter is a great place to go for that. However, you do have to be a little bit more of an elite media consumer to kind of winnow out the fact from the alt fact, and particularly when there is an event like the Boston bombing. Twitter was really helpful for people to know what was really happening on a man on the street level, but that's unverified information. One of the reasons that we have journalistic ethics and we have organizations that we respect is because they source and they verify their information. There's no sourcing and verification on Twitter. So there are times you have to take it with a grain of salt. But Twitter, right now phenomenon, breaking news. How to tweet, 140 characters, click tweet to send it out. You can attach photos, links, and video to your tweets now. You can also retweet, which is kind of like a tip of the hat to content that you find great or enraging that you want to share with your Twitter followers. You can also @reply. So you can engage in a conversation on a particular tweet by clicking on it and going through what other responses are and responding to the people who are responding to that particular tweet. For tips on who to follow, go to the people who you respect and look at who they are following, and you can find more interesting and engaging people to enrich your Twitter experience. Twitter lists, your public or your private lists, are really the only way to deal with Twitter once you've gotten above about 50 followers. Create lists. I create lists thematically. You can create lists geographically. You can create lists in any way you want, but I find themes of lists to be much easier. So like I have a list for my fitness fanatics. I have a list for the election. I have a list of my respected news journalists. I have a list for people who are into the digital nomad lifestyle. I have a list for people who are interested in social media marketing. I have a list for you can create a sports list, you can create an NFL list, you can create a list for knitters, right? You can create a list for all sorts of different thematic categories and add people who talk about those topics to those categories. And lists really are the only way to shrink down the information stream that is Twitter and be able to handle it in a manageable way. There's two last tips that I want to give you. Two last tips on how to be a good tweeter, how to be a good citizen on Twitter. And that is, please do put a profile picture up. It does not have to be your face. It could be your pet for all I care, right? I happen to use my face picture. I pretty much use this picture everywhere. So please do have a picture. You don't want it to be that little egg icon. That is a sign that you're not a serious person, and you won't get followed a lot. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have some bio information. And I'm going to click over to the people who most recently followed me so that you can see what that looks like. Okay, so if you see down here, you've got people who've got no bio information. This doesn't tell me anything about this person, and I'm less likely to follow them if they have no bio information. I scroll down a little bit further, poor Annie here. She's got a Twitter egg picture. She's got no background image, and she has no bio. The chances that I'm going to follow her are really, really slim to none. The chances that she's a bot or a program, a robotic Twitter person, are extremely high. The more information that you can actually include in your bio and with your pictures, the better off it is. The more of a real person you'll appear to be, and the more chances people will follow you, and you'll gain followers and be able to participate in conversation. So that is my 37-minute tutorial on how to use Twitter and how to be a good Twitter citizen. If you have any questions, you probably saw this on Facebook via a Facebook post. Shoot me a quick Facebook post and I will answer it there for you. All right, so I'm going to stop the screen share. You guys have a fantastic day, and I'm going to try and make this recording available. Thanks so much. Bye.